Okay, so now you can consider the exception objects that are thrown can be divided into two types. One is checked exception, another one is unchecked exception. So one is checked exception, another one is unchecked exception. So what is checked exception and what is unchecked exception? So checked exceptions are the exceptions that the compiler checks during the compile time for a smooth execution of the program. So the checked exception are the exception that are checked by the compiler. So compiler checks that whether you are handling that exception or not, and here this compiler do not check. So the checked exception are the exceptions that are checked by the compiler or the exceptions that are explicitly checked by the compiler for a smooth execution of the program at runtime. Suppose consider a simple program. Suppose in the main method we are writing some or write to a file, write something to a file. We are writing the code for that. Now, so when you write this or for the statement write to a file, the compiler is going to check that you are writing something to a file. So there may be a chance that file not found exception may occur, or we can say read from a file. So here, so consider we have a main method, and so consider here we have a main method, and the main method we are writing the code. So read from a file or local file that is in your system. Now the compiler may check that you are writing the code to read something or some data from a file. So there may be a chance that the file may not be present in your system. So that leads to file not found exception. File not found exception. So for this exception, how you are going to handle? So if this exception occurs, how you are going to handle? So first just tell me, then I will compile. So the compiler can ask like this, and if you are writing or if you are writing the code to handle this file not found exception, then the compiler is going to compile the code, otherwise the compiler is not going to compile the code. So such type of exception, that is file not found exception, are called as checked exception, or this file not found exception is a checked exception. And suppose another one is unchecked, like some division by zero exception or the arithmetic exception, something we are writing division by zero, arithmetic exception. So this arithmetic exception the compiler is not going to check. So this type of exception is called as unchecked exception. So generally you can see this one. So we have discussed about this class hierarchy. So this runtime exception is unchecked exception. This runtime exception and its subclasses, all the subclasses of this runtime exception comes under unchecked exception. That means the compiler is not going to check whether you are writing the handling code or not for the generated exceptions. And error also, you can consider error also comes under unchecked exception, and rest other classes like class not found exception, IO exception, and some other exception are also there, and that comes under checked exception. That means if there is a chance in your program that it may generate or it may throw class not found exception, you have to compulsory write the handling code, or you can propagate the exception to the caller explicitly. So that we will discuss how we can propagate the exception to the caller. So otherwise the compiler is not going to compile that one. So I hope this one is clear to everyone. Checked exception, that means the compiler is going to check whether you are writing the handling code or you are propagating the exceptions to the caller. If not, the compiler is not going to compile your program. And the unchecked exceptions are the exceptions that the compiler is not going to check whether you are writing the handling code or you are propagating or delegating the exception handling part to the caller of your method or to the caller. So I hope this is clear to everyone. So now we are going to discuss how to propagate one exception to the caller, or how we can inform the callers of a method that the method is going to generate or throw one exception, but it is not capable to handle that exception. So the syntax is like this. So the return type, then the method name, then parameter list. So this is all about method header, we have already discussed. So the return type of the method, then method name, then parameter list, and here we write the body of the method. So body of the method inside curly braces. Now if the method is going to propagate the exception to its caller, or we can say if we are going to inform to the callers of that method that this one is going to generate one exception but it cannot handle that one, so we can use the, or we can add the statement throws then the exception class. So using this one, using this throws keyword, we can inform the caller of the method that this method may generate or might generate one exception that is not capable to handle, and the callers are responsible for this. Suppose consider one example. Suppose we have my method. So assume the method name is my method and the return type is void. So void my method and parameter list is empty. So here we can write throws file not found exception, file not found exception, and here in the body we are writing some code, or we are writing to read data from a file. So here you can observe this method, my method, might generate one exception, that is file not found exception, and no catch block is there. So it may, if the exception occurs, this my method is incapable to handle that exception. So we are propagating that exception to the colors of my method, or we can say like this, we are informing the colors of my method that my method is going to throw one file not found exception, and if you are calling this my method, so you should handle this file not found exception, or it is your responsibility to handle the generate file not found exception, or you should be prepared for this. So using the throws keyword, we can propagate the exception to the colors, or we can inform the exception details to the colors. So there is one question. So what is the difference between throw and what is the difference between throw and throws? So what is the difference between throw and throws? We have discussed about throw, and here also we are discussing about throws. So what is the difference? So you can write. So generally throw is used, or throw keyword is used to manually throw an exception, and this throws keyword is used to propagate the exception. And you can add some more points to the difference. So I hope this is clear, the keyword throws. Now we will see some implementation that uses the keyword throws. So now we will see the implementation of the throws keyword. So for that, let us write a simple program that reads some texts written in a file and display the texts. So simple, we are writing a simple program using the scanner class. We will write this one. So there are also multiple ways to read a file, but we are using scanner class for simplicity. So public static void main string args. Now we can write file, suppose app equal to new file, and the file name here, so file name is sample.txt. So here you can see we have a file sample.txt text file in the same folder, and you can see the texts that are written, or the statements that are written in the sample.txt file. So it is hello world, then welcome to Java. Now we'll read these two lines from this file and display this on the screen. Okay. Now we can write scanner IP equal to new scanner. Then we can write app. Okay. Then while IP dot has next line, it is going to read and print system dot out dot println IP dot next line. Okay, so it is a simple program. Now we need to import the scanner class and the IO package for this file. So, or to read the file, so we need to import the IO package, and also you can use the scanner class, or you can use the util package like that. So for that I am writing import java dot io dot star. So I am writing dot star because we need multiple classes for the Java IO package. Now we can write import java dot util dot scanner. Okay, now you can see here this program, simple program. We are reading some text from a file sample.txt. So let us check how this program works. So javac test dot java. So here you can observe it is showing unreported exception file not found must be caught or declared to be thrown. So that means, like we have discussed, here we are reading some data from a file, then there may be a chance that the file may not be present, so or the file is missing. So that's why the program may generate one file not found exception, and file not found exception is a checked exception. That's why the compiler is going to ask that your program may generate one exception, that is file not found exception, but how you are handling that? If file not found exception occurs, how your code is going to handle that? So first tell me, then I will compile. So that's why the compiler is not compiling our code. Now suppose we can write the try and catch block. So for this, so okay, so here we can write this one inside a try catch block, so that the compiler is going to compile the code. So here we are writing this in a try block, and in the catch block we can write file not found exception, suppose E, then it is showing like system dot out dot println. So file is not present in the directory. Okay, so now we can write in the try catch block. Now let us check. Okay, successfully compiled. Then Java test. So it is saying hello world and welcome to Java, and you can see here in the sample.txt we are writing hello world, welcome to Java. Now another way for this is to use the throws keyword instead of writing this try and catch block. So just remove this try and catch. So we can also propagate the exception to its color. That means who is the color? Here the JVM is the color. So here we are doing all the things inside the main method. So JVM is the color. So here we can write throws, then file not found exception. Throws file not found exception. That means the main method may throw file not found exception. We are informing this to the caller of the main method. Okay, so now let us check how this works. So here also successfully compiled. So if you do not write throws, then the code is not going to be compiled. On Java test it is working properly. So now here you can observe, if we remove this throws one, so let us check again. We have removed the throw, then if we remove the throws or the try catch block, then the code is not going to be compiled. So it is going to throw a compilation error because file not found is a checked exception. Okay, so now suppose we are doing all the things inside a block or inside another method. So here you can observe the method name is method 1. So we are calling method 1 in the main method, and here we are defining the method 1, that is public static void method 1, and we have the parameter list empty. Okay, in the method 1 we are doing or we are reading this text from a file. Now let us check. We have not written the throws keyword, you can observe here. So now let us check. So it is showing error that on reported exception file not found must be declared or to be thrown. So here method 1 we have informed to the caller, or we are delegating the exception to the caller, or we are propagating the exception to the caller of the method 1, because in method 1 there is a chance that file not found exception may occur. Okay, so now let us check, is it working properly or not. Now again it is showing the same error. So here you can observe the method 1 we are informing to the caller, but for the main method we are doing nothing. So main method is not able to handle this file not found exception. So there are two ways. Either we can use the try catch block. So inside this try block we can write method 1, then in the catch block we can write exception, or we can write file not found exception. So we are writing exception E, then simply we are writing system.out.println file is not present, file is not present. Suppose a simple one we are writing, then the okay. So here you can observe in the main method we are writing the method 1, or we are calling the main method 1 inside the try block of the main method, and for that as method 1 may throw one file not found exception, we are writing the try catch block. Now let us compile whether it is working properly or not. Okay, successfully compiled Java test. So it is saying hello Java, welcome to Java. So another way is to remove this try and catch block from the main method, and we can remove this catch here also, this one, that is also not required, this statement. Okay, another way is if we do not write try and catch block here inside the main method, it is going to throw an error. We have already seen this one. So again I am showing you for this one. So here you can observe. Okay, so this is not saved. Okay, now let us check. Okay, so it is showing error because in the main method we are not writing the try and catch block for method 1. So another way is here we can, in the main method also we can delegate the exception, or we can propagate the exception to its caller, or in particular we can say to the JVM, or here in this scenario the default exception handler is going to act. So now let us check. Okay, successfully compiled, you can observe. So it is reading the files hello world, welcome to Java. So here you can see, as file not found exception is a checked exception, the compiler is going to check for the try catch block or throws file not found exception, because there is a chance that during the execution time of the program the file not found exception may occur. So that's why we can use either throws file not found exception, that means we are propagating the exception to the caller, or we need to handle this file not found exception using the try catch block. So in this way we have discussed the role of the throws keyword. Similarly, if multiple exceptions are required, you can write a comma and here write another exception like that. Okay, so I hope this is clear to everyone. So now let us move to the concepts of finally block. So suppose we are creating a database connection or any other connection, we can consider any other communication channel. So in our program, so we are creating any communication channel. So after using this communication channel, we need to close the channel, or if we are trying to open one database connection, then it is required to close the database connection like that. So for example, we are writing the code like this. So try and create connection. Then here also you can assume in the try block we are writing close connection. Okay, like this. Now if the exception occurs here, then for this exception this part is not going to execute. So the close connection is not going to execute. So suppose we have a database or we have a remote server and it allows 10 connections at most. Now here we have created one connection, and during that after creating connection, then some exceptions might occur or may occur. Then your program terminates and the connection is still open. Similarly, another program or another person tries to create one connection, then read some files, then during that some exception occurs, then the program terminated abnormally, so the connection is still open, so it is not closed. Similarly, assume 10 people have created the connection but they did not close the connection. Now when 11 number person tries to create another connection, the server is going to deny its request, because although these 10 connections are not used, they are still open. So in this scenario we need to close the connection or we need to close the communication channel once we finish our work. Or even also we have not finished our work, then before finishing our work some exception occurs, then also it is required to close the connection. Now how to write this close connection part so that even the exception occurs, this thing is going to execute. Even the exception do not occur, this thing is going to execute. So that means we need to write some codes or in particular we can say these codes are known as cleanup codes. So how to write these cleanup codes that is going to execute always whether the exception is thrown, whether the exception is not thrown, whether the exception is handled, whether the exception is not handled, the cleanup code should be execute or should execute always. So for that we can use finally block. So like catch block we can use finally. So if we write something inside the finally, then this finally block is going to execute always. So this finally block always executes. So we can write here it always executes. So here we can write the cleanup codes. That means close the communication channel, close that database connection, like that. So how to write this one? So you can write the try, then some code here, then we can write catch to handle the exception, then some code here, then we can write the then we can write the finally, then we can write some codes here. So after try catch we can write final block, or we can remove the catch block if we are not handling the exception, then this catch block can be removed, but we can write the final block along with the try block. So we can write try then final. So only finally we cannot write, or only try we cannot write. So we need to write try block then catch block, or we can write after try block we can write final block. So I hope this one is clear. So now we will see the implementation of the finally block. So now we will modify this program to demonstrate the finally block. So let us remove this one and make this program a simple one. So let us remove this one, and we are going for only runtime exception. So for runtime exception, this throws or try catch block is not compulsory. Okay, so let us remove this part also. Okay, so here we can write, so in the main method, suppose let us write in a try catch block. So here we can write system dot out dot println statement 2. Suppose we are writing statement 2 here, then we can write this statement here, statement 3. Okay, then here before the try block we can write another one, statement 1. Then let us here we can write throw thrw throw new arithmetic exception. Okay, now here we can write in the catch block arithmetic exception, we can write arithmetic exception ex, then here we can write statement 4, then in the finally block we can write we can write statement 5. So now let us check how this program actually works. So what are the statements we are getting if we run this program? So let us check. Unreachable statement 3. Okay, so as this is unreachable, so instead of arithmetic exception, so we can just write 100 by 0 we can write. So unreachable statement is an error here in Java, so just print 100 by 0. So 100 by 0 is by default going to throw one arithmetic exception. So let us check this one. Successfully compiled Java test. So it is saying statement 1, 2, 4, 5. 3 is not going to printed. So once this exception occurs, the rest statements in the try block are not going to be executed, like we have discussed. That's why statement 3 is not going to be printed, and this statement generates one arithmetic exception, or for this statement one arithmetic exception is thrown, and this catch block is going to manage that arithmetic exception. That's why this statement 4 gets executed, and after that in the final block statement 5 is going to be executed. Now assume that here instead of arithmetic exception we are writing null pointer exception. That means this catch block cannot handle the generated arithmetic exception. Now let us check which statements are going to be executed. Successfully compiled. So it is showing 1, 2, 5, then it is showing the exception. But before showing the exception, 1, 2, 5 are getting executed. So 1 means this one, this is before the exception is thrown, before the try block. Similarly, 2 block statement 2 also get printed because this one is before the exception occurs. Now once the exception occurs here, statement 3 is skipped. So here you can observe these statements throws one arithmetic exception. So for this statement here arithmetic exception occurs, but this catch block cannot manage the arithmetic exception. That's why the statement 4 is not going to be executed. But as we have written statement 5 inside the finally block, it is going to be executed. That's why you can see here the statement 5 gets printed here. Now assume this catch block is not here, so only the try block. So here you can observe what are the statements going to be printed. So it is saying 1, 2, 5. So without the catch block we can also write the final block, and generally we write the final cleanup codes inside a final block that are used to close a connection or to terminate the communication channel. So I hope this is clear. So we need to write the statements that are going to be executed always inside the finally block. So finally block always executes whether the exception occurs, whether the exception does not occur, whether the exception handled, whether the exception is not handled. So finally block is going to execute always, or 100% these statements that are written inside the final block are going to be executed. So I hope this is clear to everyone. So let us consider this example of the finally block statements. So here this is exception and this is exception, this is no exception. In this part the exception occurs, and in this part the there is no exception. So now we are going to discuss the flow of execution when the exception occurs and the flow of execution when the exception does not occur. So here you can observe. So T statement I throws an exception and catch block I is the matching catch block. So here in the try block we are writing statement 1, statement 2, then like this statement I. So when T statement I executes and it throw one exception, then the rest of the statements or rest of the codes in the try block are going to be skipped. That means these statements up to T statement N are not going to be executed. So this part is written in the yellow color. So here you can see this yellow one is represent the skipped person. So after T statement I, the statements are going to be skipped until the statement N, or we can say until the last statement in the try block. Now the matching catch block is the catch block I. So this catch block I part is going to be executed for the exception here it is generated. Okay, now the rest of the catch blocks are not going to be executed. Now once this catch block part is complete, the control comes to the finally block, because finally block is always executed. Now here come to this one, no exception part. So here in the try block the statements are given and no exception occurs. So if no exception is there, then the catch block part is not going to be executed, or we can say the catch blocks are only to manage the generated exceptions. So if no exception is there, then the catch block is not going to be executed. Then after the try block, the control directly comes to the finally block. That means whether there is an exception or not, you can observe finally block is always executed.